Well, Kerel, Adrianne, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having
Happy
us.
to be here.
Absolutely. So I wanted to start with both of you are marketers. I think one thing that's really important, and sometimes we forget about marketing, is that there's a human being behind the screen or behind the advertising or whatever. How do you, Adrianne, think about like the human that you're marketing to?
Yeah, I know. It is so easy to treat humans or consumers as just a piece of data. But what we think about, particularly Kimberly-Clark, and what I think about is what's the impact this is going to make in someone's life. I'm very fortunate to work for a company where our products impact so many different people at so many different stages of our life. And it, like, you see it in the creative, you see it in the messaging, you see it in the innovation. And at the heart, yes, as a marketer, right, we're going to leverage data to get to the right audience so that they actually buy our product because they can get the value and the education from our product. But really kind of keeping focus on who at home. Is it mom? Is it dad? Is it a caregiver,
Right.
a parent? Like, who is it that we are ultimately trying to help with our products? And so I
Right.
just kind of bring my team and bring myself kind of through that every day because it's so easy to get lost.
Yeah, and to think about things as a campaign. I know you and I
Right.
have talked about this in the past, especially with B2B marketing. Sometimes it's like, well, here's our campaign. And it's like, well, would you watch that?
Right,
So
right.
how do you think about that from your perspective?
Yeah. So I think, and again, we've had this conversation before, but I think from a B2B marketing perspective, sometimes we can over-index on data and performance, and we forget that even in B2B, you are still marketing and speaking with a human and a consumer,
Yeah,
right? And
a
so
human being.
how
Yeah.
do we...
Just because they're a business decision maker.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So it's like, how do we have that mix between making sure that our target audience understands our products and services and how to use them, but also creating a great experience for our consumers as well too? Because at the end of the day, right, a lot of companies have very similar products, and there isn't all that much difference between some of the products. So service is going to be super important there,
Yeah.
right? Creating a great experience is going to be super important. Creating something that's memorable for
Yeah.
your target audience is going to be super important.
Yeah, and meaningful.
Yeah.
Speaking of meaning, I would love to ask you guys about a campaign or a commercial or something that you've done in your career that had a lot of meaning to you.
Yeah, this is actually a really recent one. At Kimberly-Clark, we have Huggies diapers, and you walk into a mass or you go online, mass store online, or you go into a grocery store and you see the regular Huggies diapers. What you don't know is all about the NICU babies, who are the diapers. If a regular diaper is like the size of little NICU baby diapers, itty bitty, and Casey is really leaning in because we do provide hospitals with diapers, and we have a new campaign about little fighters, and it makes me cry every single time. And we have a wonderful woman who happened to be a NICU baby, who now is a nurse who works with NICU babies, and you see kind of her journey, and it's like it just gets me very emotional every time I think about it, because something as simple as a diaper is really making a difference in a parent's life and a baby's life that ultimately
Yeah.
grows up to be a very, productive part of society, right?
That's so sweet.
Yeah. For me, from a B2B perspective, I'll just go back to a few weeks ago at Possible. I think the activation that we did as a company there was very memorable for those who engaged with us in our space. And we had a great dinner one night with DJ Khaled as well, too. And so just going back to, again, creating a memorable experience for our customers is super important. And what was great for me was just to hear all of the feedback that we got, unsolicited feedback from our customers, from prospects that were there about how much they enjoyed that experience. Yeah.
I love that. Very cool. Okay, so I'm going to switch us gears again and go a little bit more to the human side. So, Adrianne, can you tell me a little bit about your background and, how did you get to where you are? And I guess what's something that's not on your LinkedIn?
So I originally from North Florida, but grew up in New Jersey. I like to consider myself a Campbell kid because my dad spent a better part of his career
Oh, wow.
at Campbell Soup,
Cool.
the Campbell Soup Company now, Campbell's. And so kind of CPG was always ingrained in me. But as I went through college, I actually studied engineering, and then I went into supply chain in the pharmaceutical industry. So not quite CPG, but it kind of was my springboard where I had this epiphany that I did want to go into CPG. I did want to be a marketer. And so from there, went into brand marketing, went to work for Amazon. So was on the retail side, also a startup within Amazon, and then kind of found this kind of perfect mix of CPG, technology, digital, and I came back to the CPG industry to start up e-com organizations in a couple of places, and then at KC kind of evolved that. So a lot of functions. And I think that's kind of what led me to where I am today, where I have to touch all of those different functions. So that's kind of been the rise. Some risk taking was in there too.
Okay.
But what you wouldn't see on LinkedIn is that I actually had aspirations, young, 17-year-old, to be a chemical engineer.
Okay.
Quickly learned that was not for me when I took the intro class. So one life lesson was you pivot when you need to pivot, right? And so ended up in a different form of engineering. But so kind of life changed, when you're in your teens and 20s. But that's not something most people don't even know I have an engineering background, believe it or not. So so I would say that, and then I love writing. So I have
very cool.
very sciencey person, but I love to write. And
That's
so
awesome.
I would say that's the other thing.
Okay, cool. What about you? What's something that's not on your LinkedIn bio?
We've talked about this before, cycling.
Okay,
right? That's super important for me personally for a couple of reasons. One, it's great exercise. Two, I think it's a great way to see whatever city that you're in riding a bike. And then three, I think I do some of my best thinking when I'm on a bike and I'm just out on the road. And so I love that. And I also think that people underestimate that it's more of a mental challenge to cycle than it is physical, right? Especially when you're going those long distances. So it's a great way to test yourself.
I once heard somebody say that no good idea has ever come while you were sitting in a cubicle. And
100% correct.
Yes.
Where do you find your moments of inspiration, Adrianne?
I can't believe I'm going to say this on camera, but the shower.
Okay, that's right.
It's like my
no
quiet
distraction.
time. There's no distraction. You can get lost in your thoughts. I am certain the water company or eco-friendly people are mad at me for saying that, but I will stand in the shower for long periods of time
I love
just
it.
thinking.
Yeah. Okay, Kerel, what is something that you block and protect in your calendar no matter what?
Block and protect in my time with my family.
Nice.
That is super important to me. I have a 17-year-old daughter. I have an 8-year-old daughter. My wife as well too. Just spending time with the three most important women in my life is super important. So when they have something to do, my kids keep me super busy too with all their activities. That is sort of no, we can't touch that time. I'm not flexible on that time.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Adrianne, what's a value that you stand for that you will protect at all costs?
Integrity. I if you break trust, through doing something that is not with integrity or having strong moral compass, that to me is a deal breaker.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
really place a lot of value. Do what you say, be honest.
Right.
Own your mistakes. I'm the first person, if something doesn't work, hey, didn't work for me, didn't deliver, or need to do something a little bit different. But to me, operating with integrity is at the core of everything.
Doesn't that seem just so simple, right? Just
know.
do what you say you're going to do.
Right.
It's unbelievable how many people don't do that.
I know. I think it's because people are afraid.
Yeah.
Right? They're just afraid to, and being honest and taking the high road is not always the easiest thing to do, but I place a lot of value in that personally and professionally.
Very cool. Kerel, if you could give advice to your younger self, what would you tell him?
Take more chances earlier in your life, right? I think when I started my professional life, I was very much about okay, I'm gonna grow my career sort of the traditional way, and I didn't take as many chances or think as much outside of the box as I do now. And so I definitely would go back and tell my younger self to do that.
And you mentioned risk taking was something that you've kind of that's been important to you throughout the years. What would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self, and I've told this to my stepdaughter who just graduated from college a couple of years ago, that the path is not linear, right? My path was not a straight, shot up. I move through different functions. I move through different industries. And I think that makes me a much more complete leader and having an empathetic leader. And so what I try to tell mentees and younger folks is that it's not a perfect
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No.
It might be a 1, 3, 6, 9.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
So don't be afraid
Yeah.
to do that.
You
And
and sorry, I was gonna say you and I can bond over that because it's the same thing. I started out my career in ad operations.
Yeah.
I've led account management teams. I did product marketing, so it definitely was not a straight path to CMO. But to your point, I feel like all those different experiences help me be more empathetic in the role that I am in today. So I totally agree with you.
Yep. And you don't have to know everything, right?
You don't
Yeah.
have
But it
to
gives
know
you just
everything.
that little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
And also, like, you know, you don't have to fret so much over it. You know, we think that like everybody else's career, it looks like this. It's linear. Everyone else is doing something that I should be doing, but it's like I think you're right. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. Don't measure yourself against somebody else's measuring stick.
100%. I had the opportunity to manage some folks just coming out of college, and they're always focused on everyone else. And I'm like, just stay focused on you.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Control your own, like very cliche, control your own controllable, but it's very true. Like if you do well, you will see success. Like don't focus on others.
Yeah. Do you have any sort of leadership advice that you kind of always give to?
Yeah, the one thing that I always tell folks, especially new people coming into the organization, is learn the company before you start to actually execute on your function, right?
True.
That's smart.
Yeah,
So true.
meet the people, understand the culture, understand how we service our clients, understand how we make money, and then go do what you need to do. I feel like a lot of times where things don't work out for people when they come into an organization is because they try to take what they've done in the past and just plug it in and think it's going to work. And every organization is different.
My, if I can jump in here, my dad used to tell me, Adrianne, when you start a new company, work within the system to change the system.
Love that.
And so, like, I think that just kind of is almost, very similar to what you're sharing. Like, you don't want to come in and just wreck everything. Learn it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make those small kind of incremental changes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a fun one for you guys.
Okay.
What is a belief about marketing that you used to hold but have since let go of?
I would say for me earlier in my marketing journey, it was all about data and performance, right? And while those are certainly important, I think as an industry, we've over-indexed on that, and we've lost that ability to make that emotional connection with your consumers. And so I'm much more about, as I was saying earlier, how do we create that connection? How do we create a great experience for our consumers?
Yeah.
So I would say when I was starting out in brand marketing, I think there was this misnomer of, marketing versus sales. And that has evolved. I mean, it is all kind of collapsing, right? So now having been on the brand side and now today with digital, with, omni-channel marketing, shopper marketing, it's full funnel. So marketing, it touches everything, every function. Even marketing, and especially like on retail side of things, even touches supply chain. So it is not just brand versus sales versus supply chain. We are all one team attacking the full funnel, if you want to call if you think the funnel still exists, right?
That's what I was going to say. That's probably a whole nother
discussion.
Like,
but it's all hands on deck,
Yeah.
right? And it's not just one person's job. It's not just the brand leader being like, that hub. Everybody is integrally, involved and responsible for the success of our brands and our businesses.
Yeah, I like it. Yep. Okay, I have one last fun one. If you had to give a TED Talk tomorrow about anything not work related, what would you talk about?
Anything not
I got it. You
Go
want me to
ahead.
go?
Yeah,
Okay. So I would say the title would be Trust, Work Ethic, and Formality, the impact of being the firstborn in the U.S. in a family on a person.
Oh, I love that. I feel like that should be your book title.
There you go. Well, I don't know if I have a title, but I would focus on anxiety. And what I mean by that is I think that we're all in our head way too much. Like we talk to ourselves more than we should. And we second guess ourselves, right?
Yes.
Especially in marketing and
Yes.
advertising. And so, talking about how to get out of your head and just doing what you feel is best and living with whatever the consequences are from that.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. It's so true.
I love that too. I think, what would mine be about? I think mine would be about, have you guys ever heard of the Enneagram?
Yes.
That's what mine would be about.
Tell me more.
It's essentially this like personality test, and there's 9 different types. I could give a TED Talk on it, you know. at some point.
There you go.
But I think that's probably the thing I know, or the thing I know most intimately that's not work related in my life. So that's the one I'd probably pick.
Love it.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I
Thank
really
you for
appreciate
having
having you
me.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.